markets. And this afternoon, we have Kweku Teming here with us with some business news. Kweku, I know this afternoon we're focusing on the fuel price increment.
Obviously, this morning I was in and around the 37 station, and even though the authorities have not already issued out new prices yet, well, drivers were taking the law into their own hands to decide to increase the prices, and for them, it was just not fair on them as prices keep going up. And then income tax also at the station has been inched up by over 100%. So this afternoon, my colleague Komla Kluche is out and about there in town. He will join us and give us some updates if we get the signal. But just then, we will be getting updates on other business events. So just before we touch on the petroleum price hikes, let's just quickly look at what industry is saying. And we're talking about the Association of Ghana Industries, as the Vice President of the Association, Samuel Apente, has backed a stimulus package for businesses in the 2014 budget. He believes the package will propel innovation and efficiency.
This will help concentrate industrial activities in specific areas and separate it from the domestic and residential areas, so that when it comes to coming up with policies that is discriminated more in favor of industry in terms of electricity, for instance, you want to be able to ensure that there's enough power available to industries, then that area can be dedicated and can be serviced properly. But here you are in Ghana, where you have industries interspersed with residential accommodation. What do you get? You want to support industries to be able to keep running their machines and producing.
On taxes, he mentioned the association would work closely with government.
AGI has consistently fought against pre-operating taxes, all taxes that are geared towards getting you to start paying things upfront before you even start operations. And this is because, one, most businesses in this country have a challenge with cash flows. And when you have cash flow challenges and you must pay taxes with that kind of environment, and you have also banks whose interest rates are very high, okay, you will find that you are denied the kind of cash flow you require to be able to operate effectively.
The head of research, Samson Akligo, maintained the AGI was on track.
What we need from the Association of Ghana Industries really to remain competitive in the long run is for they themselves to be innovative, invest in research and technology, and have a medium to long-term plan of really reducing costs and implementing strategies that will get them to also become formidable.
The AGI has called for incentives to further boost exports and increase inflows.
All right, so the story will continually be told about what the AGI needs to remain competitive in the industry. But let's just quickly go to our headline, a business story. My colleague will be joining me shortly. Komla Kluche is in some stations around the Greater Accra region. He will be joining us shortly. But let's get some updates on this particular issue. The leadership of the Commercial Transport Business caution members not to increase fares until a meeting is convened to peruse cost elements of new petroleum prices. They argue fares are not determined exclusively by fuel price hikes, but other components like spare parts and lubricants. The price of major petroleum products at the pumps have been increased by between 1 to 6%. Very shortly, my colleague Komla Kluche will be joining me on the line. But it goes on to say that the price of petrol has been increased by 1.7%, gas oil by 1.27%, and LPG by 6.18%. Well, very shortly, we're trying to link on to Komla Kluche, who's in the stations. He would give us an update as to whether the drivers will comply with what authorities are saying. He's on the line. Very shortly, he will be coming in. But this comes after the latest price review by the National Petroleum Authority to reflect world market trends, which saw the average prices in the last 2 weeks that's exceeded. So very shortly, we will be going to town. We'll be hearing from the drivers. We'll try to find out if the drivers by themselves have decided to increase the prices. Now, don't you forget, early morning today, TV3 was out in the on the field, and we tried to find out from drivers. Now, some signals were picked indicated that the drivers were taking the law into their own hands. They were deciding to increase fares. We tried finding out from 37th station moving to Labadi what the prices were like, and for some passengers they were just simply not happy because the drivers had increased some prices. My colleague Kamala Kluche is joining us on the line with the latest update on this particular issue. Well, straight to you, Kamala, you have it.
To make some negative of the two.
So you can see the feed coming in shortly. My colleague Kamala Kluche is out there. He will be joining you with the latest move. Of course, we remain the leaders when it comes to business. We remain the leaders when it comes to bringing you the story up to the minute. That's why we just want to find what is happening currently on the ground. But meanwhile, I'll just give you some few updates. Now, this is in line with government's resolve not to interfere with the authorities' bi-monthly review by way of subsidies for consumers. The Public Relations Office of the National Petroleum Authority, Yaro Kasambata, says since the last adjustment of the pump prices of petroleum products in June, prices of petroleum products have experienced volatility on the international market. Of course, this has merited the reason why they would have to increase the prices. We'll just be getting to Kamala Kluche on that particular story. But before he comes in, let's just do other business stories. And this time, Textile Garments and Leather Employers Union has asked government to rescind its decision of donating size pirated wax springs to charities. So the pirated wax springs should be destroyed and it should not be donated. This is what the union is calling for. They contend the new directive is an affront to the World Trade Organization's agreement seeking to punish offenders who trade in counterfeit goods.
Barely 2 weeks ago, government stated that from effective September 13, all seized pirated wax springs will be given to charity rather than destroyed.
Government has now decided that it will be dedicated to charity and shared among vulnerable groups in society such as children's home, witches camp.
The directive has infuriated the Textiles, Garment and Leather Employers Union.
Tegru abhors ad hoc measures of government which subvert industrial growth, ostensibly aimed at fulfilling obligations of state to the vulnerable in society. So, as a founding member of the WTO, Ghana government is expected to commit itself to the TRIPS agreement, which seeks to protect IP rights with deterrent sanctions, including destruction of counterfeit products involving slavish copying of trademarks and designs.
The union further regretted loss of revenue running into thousands of cedis to the state owing to the influx of the pirated wax springs.
If you just joined us, you're still watching Midday Live. We'll still have more business stories for you. Taking other stories on the economy, government needs over $1.2 billion to improve infrastructure in the country. Now, the minister at the office of the president in charge of private sector development, Rashid Pelpu, has urged private sector developers to help build a strong economy as government cannot raise this amount alone. He observed this at a meeting in both private and public organizations here in Accra.
Relationship between the private and public sectors, Rashid Pelpu is advocating a collaboration to move the economy.
We need to have a framework, a legal framework, and a policy direction. Fortunately, we've gotten the framework and we are now couching out the policy, which will be the blueprints in where we want to go. And when you do that, it defines the transparency, the level of transparency, the processes that are going to be followed, so it becomes easier for businesses to come in and out.
A British-based organization, GT Energy Consult, is partnering both public and private agencies on the best way to boost growth.
We're coming in and we're saying, listen, Ghana is a great country, it has some great ideas and it has some great practices. Let's now partner with some of the international practices as well. Let's learn from the mistakes of perhaps some of your neighbouring countries. Let's learn those mistakes and make sure that Ghana doesn't make those and build some really good infrastructure in your country.
The collaboration is expected to drive growth enormously.
My name is Kweku Temin. I have a passion to bring you the best of business stories.